The adventures of Mistress Sweetwater in High Rannoch have come to an end. But let's follow her for one more episode, shall we? Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Drawing Expressions. I'm Parz. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. If this is the first time you're listening to my Apothecaria story, you want to catch up on the episodes, and like this is your first one, you're a little late to the game. This is the epilogue. But hey, no time like the present. Watch this one if you like. Start at the beginning, really, is where you should start. But we're here at the end, so maybe start at the end. Some people do that. Anyway, yeah, so welcome to the end. Before we start getting into anything like that, let's first talk about guidelines, because guidelines, they bend, they don't break, and guidelines are my friend. So, guidelines. In the planner in the Panzer section, the planner section is what it always is. How did I put the story together? The creative mixing bowl. And the Panzer section today, it's going to be talking about epilogues and why I like them. And before we do anything else, let us take a moment to breathe and stretch, shall we? So sit up nice and tall, have your sit bones in your chair, and take a nice deep breath. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Deep breath in. And stretch. Always does a wonder for my back. I like it. Okay, so like I said, this is the epilogue. So all the adventure has taken place, but let's follow what happens to Mistress Sweetwater and others at this last bit. So we're just going to dive right into the narration. This is called Time to Move On. There was a tension in the air, as if the calm wasn't occurring, as if the activity of days hadn't ceased. Tomorrow would bring, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What mattered, at least in this moment, was a final goodbye, of sorts, from one friend to another, which is why Mistress Sweetwater was sitting in front of her writing desk, thinking, composing, but never really starting, until at last she shrugged and just started. Dear Pip, it's been a crazy few days here in my version of the Here Yet Not Here. I know that sometimes what happens in my world can echo into yours, or maybe it's the other way round, or maybe something happens somewhere else and we experience echoes of that. In this moment, I realized that if I wanted to get all philosophical, I should have let Mouse-Eye write this. Anyway, I just hope your experience has been less chaotic than mine has been. I should add that some of the crazy is from the mayor of High Rannoch. It turns out that he and his wife are malicious and magic wielders. They actually got the headmistress of the herbology school to collect people. She'd gotten to the point of abducting people and putting them into a long-term sleep. My friends and I managed to set things back to a more normal way, but in the process it broke me of my desire to be the village witch anymore. The timing is awkward, what with the flower festival approaching and Bess, more about her in a minute, having promised to play in the local tavern, but between the trauma she experienced, she wasn't hurt, but it was all emotionally draining, and the overwhelming gratitude of the people we rescued, there were so many people, we received gifts aplenty, which, when added to my small stack of coins, will keep us in money for a good long while. And even given that, we can both make money wherever we choose to go, she as a bard and me as a witch. We've packed the things I've collected into Bess's wagon and into Vapor Trails' copious storage space. I did make a suggestion that we pack Bess's wagon into Vapor Trail, but Bess blanched at that. So, it's the slow but steady method of rolling along roads instead of flying over them that will get us from place to place. I'm looking forward to slow travel, curing sniffly noses, and maybe even a wart or two. I still can't believe that I thought all I'd ever face was warts on various odd body parts. It went remarkably well. Everyone, the bees, Fen, Pop, everyone wants to be a part of whatever Bess and I either discover for ourselves or create. I'm so honored they want to be a part of this new adventure. I got your last note and the teenage pillar mushrooms. They are also safely ready to travel. Also in your last note, you said that the chocolates you sent were the last ever made by the master chocolatier Wonky Willie. We all really enjoyed them, with some of us gorging and others savoring. I'll let you guess which naughty characters ate like there will never be any more, because, as we now know, there won't be any more. I'm rambling. Sorry. The goodbyes have been hard. I'm going to miss Bob and Roger and Fussy and, well, everyone, human and not. I feel like I was making a difference in their lives just as they've made a huge difference in mine. Someone I'm not saying goodbye to is Bess. Words just can't express how I feel about her. We've only known each other for a couple of weeks, and usually we were experiencing something extraordinary at the time, like meeting Nut, the Star Dragon. But I know her heart. It's pure and supportive and courageous, but I don't think she'd admit to that last one. We both know that we don't really know many details that make up our own individual experiences and histories, but it's the discovery of those details that I think will be a source of intimacy, of partnership, of living life together. I don't suppose anyone ever said directly that witches aren't supposed to be sappy, but I am. Ooh, speaking of, I found out my parentage and I'm half human. My mom's a dryad. Things make more sense now, mostly in small respects, but when you add them all up, don't forget to carry the 7, it's a lot. I know there's a lot more I could say, but I also need to close this up, send it off, and hope you receive it with the same goodwill that I've embedded within each word. I should add that Bess has this idea to breed popolocks and to have music infused inside of them, so you could have a song or tale at the ready. It's nothing more than a wild idea, but if there's one thing I've learned from my experience is that even wild ideas aren't necessarily nearly as wild as might be perceived at first. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. Thank you, Best Bestie, for your gifts, your kindnesses, your wisdom. Mouse Eye says I should specifically mention cookies, and something about not using dragon fire to bake them. I don't know what that's about, but I do hope you are okay. Hopefully, between my knowledge of the here yet not here and my newfound ability to travel along plant root systems, I'll be able to send more notes or even perhaps visit one day. For now, though, we're going to travel to my childhood home so that Bess can meet my parents, and I can learn more about what it means to have dryad blood. And maybe, just maybe, I can learn to pronounce my given name using my human mouth. It's a tongue twister in tree form, so I don't hold out much hope, but it'll be fun to try. Love you, Best Bestie. Sweet. Folding the letter with care, she set it where the here yet not here portal exists, knowing it'll be delivered to Pips's cottage. With the second-to-last self-imposed obligation completed, she knelt before the cold hearth, hands in her lap, and thought of me. The sensation of so many feelings flowing to me, thanks, appreciation, respect, sorrow, and a host more, moved me deeply. I gave her my blessing, my love, and my understanding. It was hard, watching my best student leave, but I also knew she was ready to make her mark upon the wider world. Once our communion was complete, she found Bess, her lover, compatriot, soulmate, kissed her, then said the words she'd been fighting against but which I knew were coming. I'd like to go now, even a kilometer or two along the road. It's too painful to stay. I, too, had some final things to do. I was able to watch as the town of High Rannoch prepared to celebrate the coming festival, perhaps more fully than it had in a very long time, having been saved by a set of unlikely heroes from a fate perhaps not worse than death, but being put into a prolonged slumber would, in many ways, be the same as a fate equal to death. Speaking of, I shifted focus to the fate of the mayor and his wife. While I disliked the actions they had taken and would certainly have disliked even more the growing, elaborate, and confident maledictions, curses, and other evil works, still I felt pity for their current state. And I suppose to make that make sense, I have to add that they are currently both in a chamber suite never visited, watched by the self-titled Count as the two fight each other. One is to be a sacrifice to the demon Askew for services rendered, a demon who works on credit, whoever would have thought. while the survivor will be turned into a vampire and made the primary subject for the Count's experiments to reverse his magically imposed vampirism. And then it was time for me to make my last calls to say goodbye to one and all I've met and known for the countless years I've been here. I can feel the promise of the presence of my next student, my next apprentice, far off in a distant land. It's a journey I look forward to, an adventure I can't wait to commence, an excitement I haven't experienced for a very long time. Never let it be said that it's only Baba Yaga's hut that can stand on its own two legs and make its way to a new home. And that is the end of the Apothecaria story. Okay, so after reading that, let's take a moment to breathe and stretch, shall we? Let's. Okay, let's take a nice deep breath in. Here we go. And stretch. There we go. Relax all the reading muscles. There we go. Okay. So let's talk about how this thing came together, shall we? Okay. So creative mixing bowl. So first off, prompts. All right. Prompts is the first thing. So there are no guidebook prompts that go into the making of this epilogue. But I had a couple of prompts coming from Alicia. And so let's see here. So Pip sent one last note that had to be answered. And it was a short one. I'm going to... There one. That side, I think it's going to be. And anyways, it was just a quick little emergency request. Take care of these pillar mushrooms. And, oh, by the way, the chocolates are the last batch that will ever be made by Wonky Willie. So have to answer back, and right, and Mr. Sweetwater is getting ready to head off and do other things, and so this is her opportunity to sort of send a last note, sort of wrapping things up before she goes off and does something else. So that needed to be done, and then also within Pips's storyline. So she had sent the note. So this is Alicia's story. So Pip sends the note, and and then Alicia is continuing Pips's story, and within that activity, within that story, she tried to integrate in Pip's world prompts into her Apothecaria story. And what ended up happening, now you have to understand that Alicia is a very, very, very pantser writer. So oftentimes it's just like she doesn't know what the story is going to be. It's just she's writing it down, and then she's learning it as she's writing it down. In the more spiritual realms, this can be called automatic writing. And so this is sort of that same mechanism of she doesn't know, she hasn't made conscious decisions about what's going to happen. It's happening right there on the page as she's writing it down. And what happened on the page is a giant dragon showed up and burned everything to a giant crisp. And Pip managed to escape into a cave and is like in an alternate dimension, and eventually sets up a new cabin as a witch in this new location. But yeah, like her story just kind of died, like, and like burned up like ash and smoke and dragon breath. So yeah, so Mouse Eye was aware of that. So Mouse Eye, he was in my story, but he was also in her story. And so she was, Mouse Eye was part and parcel with the whole thing happening with Pip and the dragon and everything. And she's and I keep saying she because in Alicia's story, in Pip's, the world that Pip occupies, Mouse Eye is female. And in my story, Mouse Eye is male. So anyways, she keeps saying, I'm going to keep your secret. You're safe here in the cave. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to tell anybody. including everyone that you know and love, you're safe. And so it's like, gee, thanks a lot, big help. But anyways, that was the mention for the Dragonfire. All right, so let's talk about what's been written before. The biggest character in the story that hasn't been directly addressed yet is the cottage. The land, the entity that was sort of holding everything together. And in this episode, I wanted to wrap that story up as well. And so, so there was that opportunity. So that's it for what's been written before. Okay, so that takes us to the imagination piece. And so first off, just a quick note on this particular epilogue. So epilogues are usually for seeing the fate of characters after the main storyline has played out. I'm using it not only as a means to show Sweets' and Bess's plans, but to close out a different storyline as well that was never talked about, right? That of the cabin. And it adds a bit of a nuance that I think it's a nice little twist just right there at the end, which just sort of reframes a bunch of things across the entirety of the weeks. And I also wanted to take the opportunity to start using Pip's World conventions. And so I opted in this epilogue, right? So in the prologue all the way through to the end of week 11, everything was in first person, main character, and in Pip's voice. Not Pip's voice, Sweet's voice. But in this epilogue, it's not first person from Sweet's point of view. It's first person from the point of view of the cabin, or the cottage, or the land, or however not the land, I guess, because the land's not going anywhere, but the cabin certainly is. And so that to me felt very opportune. It sort of helps to transition from the Apothecaria, where I'm only doing first person main character, into Pip's World, where the choices that get made, it's different on every episode, and deliberately so. Okay, so another thing I wanted to mention and not resolve is the romantic relationship between Sweet and Bess. Sweet still does not know about Bess being transgender. And in some circles, this could be considered to be rude. Why hasn't this been revealed? Bess has tried a couple of times, and I don't know if I've been very forthright about that's the conversation she's trying to have. But she tried. But the mention here is that having openness and love and this willingness to be curious and explore and get to know the other person deeply is going to help to bridge that gap. And so so that's really what it is. It's a message. It's intended to be a message of love, trust, open relationships, curiosity, and open-mindedness. That's what it's intended. Okay, and the last thing is, as I was writing this, I also found myself wanting I wanted the cottage to experience other places, not just simply have Sweet and Bess go off and then leave the cottage planted right there near High Rannoch and waiting for the next switch to come through. So using the idea of Baba Yaga's hut, and I became familiar with Baba Yaga's hut way back when I was a teenager and playing Dungeons and Dragons. There's this mention of Baba Yaga's hut, and it's stuck with me. So I had the opportunity to look it up, and Wikipedia, thank you so much, get some more details, tuck in the mention, and off we go. So that's where that came from. Okay, so that brings us to epilogues and why I like them. Prologues too, but we specifically talk about epilogues right now. So your tale's been told, the story's over, the promise of the opening has been met, the unfolding of the middle has been completed, and the resolution of the reason for the whole story in the first place has come to pass. Story's over. But is it? The main action is over. Once the characters have done their thing, isn't it nice to see just a little bit further how things have changed for them? How have their lives been made different? You know, maybe better, maybe worse, but definitely different. Isn't it nice to learn little bits and pieces more? It's sort of like at the end of that movie where like you're watching the end credits, and then all of a sudden it's just like it's talking about the fate of each character, you know, at the very, very end. I kind of like that. So epilogues give me a freedom outside of the main story to show how characters and setting were impacted by the actions that occurred during the action parts of the story. So it also gives me an opportunity to expand a bit on what it was all about. If the characters didn't garner that knowledge originally. Sweet has no idea that the cabin is, I mean, she knew that there was a spirit and there was this energy and she was communing with it, but how far that went, she does not know, right? She's gone away now, and now the cabin is just headed off and going in the other direction. And Sweet will never know. Unless in fan fiction she finds out. She's not going to find out here. Anyways, I like it for that distinct purpose. I like having the action of the story contained with the chapters in the story. Anything that sort of leads up to it is the prologue. Anything that follows after that is the epilogue. That's how I prefer to do things. Other authors will take prologue and epilogue and stick it in there as individual chapters and calling it all part of the narrative, and so just having it all crunched together. My preference is not to do that. But there's no right or wrong answer here, right? This is all guidelines. More guidelines. Okay, so with all that, I definitely have covered everything that I was hoping to cover today. So let us go over to the drawingXpressions haiku. A creative space, holistically supportive. Please like, share, subscribe. Please. And all that said, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey, for running through how many ever odd episodes it's been. Many. I invite you to watch from the beginning, the volumes 1 through 5 in the narration only playlist. I'll put probably over there a link to that playlist, and then it in essence becomes like your audiobook without me all doing the extraneous talking about how things came about. It's just the narration. Anyways, until the next time, so in 2 weeks' time, there will be another video, the volume 5. I invite you to keep coming back, hanging around. Pip's World will be coming up. There's a couple of videos in between the finishing of Apothecaria and the start of Pip's World, but I hope you're going to stick through all of that, and I will see you next time. Bye for now. That's a wrap.